Welcome to our channel Crime Loom, the place where true crime stories come alive.
He looked like a man no one would ever notice. He had a job, a family, a quiet life in London. People passed him on the street without a second glance. Neighbors trusted him. No one felt afraid when he was nearby. He blended into everyday life, hiding in plain sight but behind closed doors. A different man existed, a man driven by dark thoughts and violent desires, a man who used silence as a weapon and fear as control. For years, women were attacked in their own homes. Doors were locked, streets were quiet, and still, the danger found a way inside. The attacker left no face, no name, and almost no trace. Police searched for answers. Victims waited for justice. Time passed, and the fear remained. This is the story of Bruce George Peter Lee, a man who lived an ordinary life and committed extraordinary evil. Bruce George Peter Lee was born on the 2nd of June 1944 in Walthamstow, East London. He grew up in post-war Britain, a time when many families struggled, but communities were close and people trusted one another. On the surface, Bruce Lee's childhood appeared ordinary. He lived in a working-class neighborhood and attended local schools like many other boys his age. No one around him suspected that this quiet child would one day become one of Britain's most disturbing sexual predators. As a young boy, Bruce Lee was shy and withdrawn. He found it difficult to make friends and often felt ignored. Teachers described him as quiet and unremarkable. He did not stand out for intelligence or trouble. He simply existed in the background, watching others live the lives he felt excluded from. This sense of isolation stayed with him as he grew older. During his teenage years, Bruce Lee became increasingly introverted. He struggled with confidence, especially around women. While other boys began forming relationships, he felt rejected and invisible. These feelings slowly turned into resentment. Instead of learning how to cope in a healthy way, he began blaming others for his loneliness. His thoughts became darker, and his emotional development stalled. As he entered adulthood, Bruce Lee appeared to settle into a normal life. He found work as a council employee, a stable and respectable job. He married and eventually had children, 2 neighbors and colleagues. He seemed polite, calm, and responsible. He was not known for aggression or violence. People trusted him. This normal appearance would later make his crimes even more shocking. Behind closed doors, however, Bruce Lee lived a very different mental life. He developed disturbing sexual fantasies focused on control, fear, and domination. These thoughts grew stronger over time. He became obsessed with power and began to see women not as people, but as objects meant to satisfy his desires. These fantasies were not fleeting thoughts. They became central to his identity. By the late 1970s, Bruce Lee crossed a dangerous line. He began acting on his fantasies. His crimes started quietly, carefully planned and executed. He targeted women who were alone, often entering homes at night. He chose moments when victims were most vulnerable. His actions showed patience, planning, and intent. Bruce Lee often wore a mask or covered his face during attacks. This was not only to avoid identification, but also to heighten fear. Victims later described him as calm and controlled. He did not shout or panic. His quiet confidence made the attacks even more terrifying. He relied on fear to control his victims rather than physical struggle. After committing these crimes, Bruce Lee returned to his normal life without drawing attention. He went back to work, spent time with his family, and interacted with neighbors as if nothing had happened. This double life allowed him to continue offending for years. The contrast between his public image and private actions was extreme. Police investigations during this time faced many challenges. The attacks occurred in different areas, and there was little physical evidence. Victims were traumatized and often unable to give detailed descriptions. Without modern forensic tools, linking the crimes was difficult. Bruce Lee remained free, growing more confident with each successful escape. As the years passed, his crimes escalated. His sense of invincibility increased. He believed he was smarter than the police. This confidence made him more reckless. In some cases, he stayed longer at crime scenes. In others, he made small mistakes. These mistakes would eventually lead to his downfall. During the 1980s and early 1990s, advances in forensic science began to change criminal investigations. DNA profiling became a powerful new tool. Old cases were reopened, and evidence was re-examined. Samples collected years earlier suddenly became valuable. Police began noticing patterns in several unsolved sexual assault cases. The methods were similar. The timing was similar. The behavior of the attacker followed the same pattern. Investigators suspected a serial offender. DNA testing confirmed their suspicions. Multiple crimes were linked to the same man. In 1999, Bruce George Peter Lee was arrested. To the outside world, the arrest was shocking. A middle-aged family man, a council worker, now accused of some of the most horrific crimes imaginable. At first, Bruce Lee denied everything. He maintained his calm demeanor and insisted he was innocent. When police presented him with DNA evidence, his confidence collapsed. The science was undeniable. His genetic profile matched samples from several crime scenes. Years of secrecy ended in that moment. The mask he had worn for decades was finally removed. During his trial, the full extent of his crimes became clear. Multiple victims came forward, some speaking publicly for the first time. Their testimonies painted a terrifying picture of a man who had used fear as a weapon. The courtroom was silent as survivors described the lasting impact of his actions. Psychological experts evaluated Bruce Lee during the trial. They described him as having severe personality disorders. He showed little empathy or remorse. He did not fully acknowledge the harm he had caused. Experts warned that he posed a serious and ongoing danger to society. The judge described Bruce Lee as a calculated and predatory offender. The sentence reflected the seriousness of his crimes. He was given life imprisonment with a long minimum term. The court emphasized that public safety required his permanent removal from society. For the victims, the verdict brought a sense of justice, though not peace. Many said the trauma stayed with them for life. Nightmares, fear, and anxiety did not disappear with the sentence. Still, knowing their attacker could no longer hurt anyone else offered some closure. In prison, Bruce Lee lived a quiet and isolated existence. He did not gain notoriety like some criminals. There were no signs of rehabilitation or change. He remained largely withdrawn, just as he had been in childhood. But this time, he was no longer invisible. The case of Bruce George Peter Lee highlighted the dangers of hidden predators. It showed how isolated dangerous individuals can blend into society. It also demonstrated the power of forensic science and delivering justice. Even decades later, this story is not only about one man's crimes, it is about the courage of survivors who came forward. It is about the importance of believing victims. And it is about how technology can uncover the truth when time and fear once protected the guilty. Bruce George Peter Lee will forever be remembered not as the quiet man next door, but as a reminder that evil does not always look frightening. Sometimes, it looks ordinary. Bruce George Peter Lee is no longer free. The doors of the prison closed behind him, and the quiet streets of London are safer because of it. But the scars remain. The fear, the pain, the memories of those he hurt, they cannot be erased. His story reminds us that evil does not always shout. Sometimes, it whispers. Sometimes, it hides behind an ordinary face. Justice came, finally, but it could never bring back the innocence lost. Bruce George Peter Lee will spend his life behind bars, a warning to those who think darkness can hide forever. And for the victims, their courage became stronger than his crimes. Their voices brought truth to light. Their stories will never be forgotten, because even in the darkest shadows, justice can shine.
For watching more amazing videos like this, subscribe our channel Crime Loom.